Welcome to the Eye of the Explorer. My name is Richard Denison, and over the years I've made many films about people making their dreams come true. After all, adventure is fundamental to the human spirit. But some of the best stories have never been told, mainly because it's not always possible to take a film crew to the ends of the earth. But all of that is about to change. With the invention of these little hip pocket cameras, the adventurers are becoming the filmmakers. And during the next few weeks, we'll be going to some of the most amazing places on Earth to bring you back some incredible stories. But tonight, sit back and relax while Don McIntyre takes you to the Antarctic through the Eye of the Explorer.
I'm Don McIntyre, and this is Buttercup, the yacht that I sailed single-handed around the world in the 1990-91 VOC Challenge. Well, after that gruelling task, I thought I deserved a well-earned break, so for me, it was a teddy bear's picnic to Antarctica, with 200 teddies on board as a fundraiser for the local Camperdown Children's Hospital. We were bound for the windiest place on Earth, and as things developed, we were to learn why it was called the home of the blizzard. So why don't you go and put a jumper on, sit back and relax, because this is going to be one chilling yarn. Departure day. There was more than a few serious bear lovers here waving goodbye to their teddies on an adventure of a lifetime.
Now, you'll have it pretty tough, I think. It'll be good for his character.
He is expecting to see whales. He wants to see whales, and he is going to go, and I hope he doesn't get seasick.
I said goodbye to Margie. I wouldn't see her for nearly 2 months. And we set sail in the middle of summer, bound for the windiest place on Earth in Antarctica. And I thought back to Mawson, one of the last great explorers of the heroic age.
The 2nd of December 1911, and we were ready to depart. The adventurers were aboard. Dr. Mawson and Captain Davis were on the bridge, and a great crowd had gathered to see us off. So we dropped down the Derwent, feeling as if we were aboard a fairy ship bound for a realm of wonderment, enchantment, and mystery.
I was voyaging south with 3 unique individuals. Hans Sturzenegger. He was so big we'd call him Tractor. And then, of course, there was little Johnny Miles, an army specialist of nearly 9 years. We'd call him Psychopath. And the chap up the mast, well, that's Wade Fairley, cameraman extraordinaire, once again trying to get the ultimate shot. We had some tremendous sailing down the Australian coastline, but ultimately, well, we got to the Southern Ocean. The crew all got sick. I wasn't going to get sick, I was the skipper. I'd sailed solo around the world. Well, that's what I thought. I actually was sick, and then all of a sudden the crew started to feel really good about it. In spite of the condition of the crew, the passengers were actually bearing up quite well. How's the boat crew? They loved listening to the radio, particularly the ABC.
I can hardly wait to get down there, my God.
Of course, being the skipper, I had certain privileges. I really didn't have to stand a watch outside. But I had this neat astrodome bubble that I could just make sure that they were trimming the sails right and steering a straight course.
Get that steering. What course are you steering?
Barely 11 days out of Sydney, we saw our first iceberg, and the crew got really excited because I was the experienced hand here. I'd seen icebergs sailing around the world. So I thought I'd show them how to do it and conquer my first iceberg.
Look out for the prop. Hey. Watch the prop.
I'll try around this
The
side
good
here.
news was that I had a special Musto survival suit on, sort of a dry suit, but the bad news was I'd left about an inch of the fly undone. At first, it didn't really bother me because I was quite busy grappling with this burgy bit, but eventually I started to experience what it was like being a brass monkey.
What a lovely day for a swim.
With this newfound urgency to get out of the water, I had a lot of troubles. It was as slippery as Teflon, hard as diamonds, and as soon as I got on it, just wanted to tip me off.
I've conquered my first bird. Yeah. You can give it a name, Don.
By the time I'd conquered the berg, I was starting to feel a little frigid, but at least the teddies were dry.
Here's Agro and I stuck on the bird. Just sit there with nothing to do. Just say, hello, Agro, hello, Bear. I'm out here, the sun's shining, blue sea, we've got the spinnaker up and things are just rolling along. We're at 64 degrees south. And you wouldn't believe it, yesterday we're playing with icebergs and swimming around. Today well, we could be sailing off the Queensland coast.
Last time I was down here in the BOC Challenge, I was really blasted, big gales, roll 360, you name it. So you really never know what to expect in the Southern Ocean. It's an area of great contrast.
It's all happening again. You just got rolled 360. So this is one of the times when I wish I wasn't here. But there you go. And emotionally it's very draining. But I reckon that big boys don't cry, you know. Well, there you go. It's a strong boat. I'd hate to be out here in anything other than this boat, I'll tell you. I've got to keep telling myself all the time that I've got a strong boat, a strong rig, I've got 7 watertight compartments, I've got good radio communications, I've got everything. So really I'm pretty safe, as safe as I can get. But still pretty scary out here, I tell you. The big seas. Anyway, I'm still looking for icebergs, but I can't find any on the radar. So I just hope there's none out there.
About 100 miles from the Antarctic coast, we came across our first pack, and we had to steer a slalom course to get through, and we thought that was pretty thick, but it was nothing like what we experienced about 6 hours later.
This is stuff that we want to avoid like the plague, because you hit this at speed and that's the one that causes the damage on the boat. Penguin. On there. Over on the burger bit.
And then we saw our first penguins, obviously out on a fishing trip. I thought they were waving at us at first, but then we realised that they weren't interested in us, they were interested in the bears. Our first leopard seal. He's obviously after those penguins we saw. Eventually it got so thick that we had to send little Johnny up the mast to find our way through. It really was thicker than we had expected. This is getting interesting. I wonder how it was for Mawson.
We headed south into the bleak realms of the shrieking 50s and later entered the outskirts of the polar sea. The ocean was littered with fragments of ice, which as we proceeded further south became unnavigable.
In amongst the pack we came across some really interesting bergs, and this was really sort of classic Antarctica. This one was really huge. It was the size of a couple of football fields and really spectacular. And the seas, well, now they were virtually flat because they were in behind the breakwater of the pack ice. You couldn't really get too close to these things. They were moving and they were alive. You could hear them crackling and just an incredible sense of power. There it was, the Antarctic continent. I mean, it's really hard to describe, but it's just this huge, massive, featureless, iced Christmas cake. I mean, it goes on as far as you can see to the left, as far as you can see to the right. It just goes upwards and onwards inland, and it's like nothing you've ever seen. It's a really stark, powerful feeling. It's just sitting there. It's sort of sitting there ready to grab you. It's as if it's sort of saying a very silent statement along the lines of, you're not meant to be here, you know, you shouldn't be, this is foreign, you're an alien here, I mean, you don't belong here. But at the same time, it's like a magnet, it's just drawing you in. It's a really humbling situation, not only spiritually, but also physically. I mean, you're literally brought to your knees thinking about it. You're totally on your own. There's absolutely no one anywhere that can give you any form of assistance. So you have to look after yourself. And that was a big responsibility because I had 3 other crew plus 200 teddy bears. The closer I got to Mawson's hut, the more I looked through his eyes at our progress.
We had reached the coastal land of our aspirations and we began scouting for a possible landing place. We headed up to the shore, which proved to be an ideal location, and named the place Cape Denison, and the great bay about it, Commonwealth Bay. As the weather was delightfully calm, no time was lost in lightering ashore hut timbers, stores and equipment. This was to be our main shore base, from where sledging parties would go out east and west and south to carry on scientific work and explore the unknown.
This is the unpredictability of Antarctica. The moment we started to get lines ashore and anchors over, the wind picked up. And we thought that was a bit of breeze. I mean, it is the home of the blizzard, I suppose, but it was nothing compared to what was going to happen. We were the first people to tie up inside Boat Harbour for nearly 7 years. The place really belonged to the penguins and seals, and we were itching to get ashore and check them out. Penguins are really happy little fellas, really unafraid. And as for the seals, well, they'd sort of look up to us as if they knew us.
Not you guys again.
Little did we imagine when we landed in calm sunshine that we had established ourselves in the most tempest-ridden spot on the face of the globe. For the whole year, the average wind velocity was 48.5 miles an hour.
I was really looking forward to seeing his hut. Mawson was one of my early heroes. Mawson adopted a purely scientific interest in Antarctica and came back with some tremendous findings. And the information that he achieved then is still being used today. The most interesting artefacts are scattered downwind of the hut by the constant blizzards. Everyday sort of things from Mawson's passing. There was clothes, there was shoes, even the stove that they used to cook their meals all those years ago.
I, Sir Douglas Mawson, do hereby proclaim and declare to all men that from and after the date of these presents, the full sovereignty of the territory which we have discovered and explored south of latitude. Save our gracious King, long live our noble King, God save our King.
It's full of snow now, but really that's the only thing that's holding it there. I mean, the winds really blow hard, and that snow's now turned to ice and has anchored it there solidly. The outhouse had a tremendous view, a little bit chilly, but the bowl was missing and the paper had blown away anyway. Actually, it was really the transit hut. Mawson used it to observe the heavens. Just so happens that Cape Denison finds itself right in the middle of quite a few Adelie penguin rookeries, and there's thousands of these penguins all over the place. These chicks had been born in November, so they were a couple of months old, just starting to lose their down, and are forever hungry. biologists would probably say that they're eating regurgitated fish, but I'd just say that parents are spewing over the kids. These little guys are forever hungry, but if the cupboard's bare, all Mum can do is just clear out. But if she gets too far from the nest, she's got other problems. It's impossible to get soft bedding down here, so penguins build their nests with small pebbles. And they're just as hard to find unless you're really cunning. So life down here is a bit of a catch-22 and consists mainly of diving, feeding, and then trying to find your pebbles again. Top of the food chain around here is the leopard seal. Penguins eat fish, but leopard seals eat penguins, so the first one in, if he's not eaten, the others will usually follow pretty quickly.
All right, come on, it's your turn. Come
Oh,
on.
John, you went first, I thought.
Come on, come
Oh,
on.
I don't know. Hey, don't push me.
Come on, come on.
Dear.
Come on, it's your turn. I went last. Come on, come on. Come on. Hang on, fella. Let's see what happens to him. Hang on. Better watch it. Hey, I can't
think he got
see.
eat. Oh, I don't know. Seems to be various levels of competence at this. Or maybe they're a little bit scared. In fact, yeah, I think some of them are definitely scared. If you're going to get the fish that John West don't get, eventually you have to take the plunge. Little leopard seal. Looks a bit cold. I'm sure there's one. No, there's not. I'm gone. Oh, he's gone. Oh, what do we do now?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Is he still swimming? Come on, guys, it's not that bad. Oh, okay. Over on the far side of the harbour, we found something really strange. It was a lonely emperor penguin, and he really wasn't meant to be there. The nearest rookery, probably a couple of 100 miles away, so he was definitely lost. They go fishing hundreds of miles out to sea, so he must have been separated. But he also looked a bit sad. Perhaps he was the caretaker of the site, or maybe even the spirit of Mawson. We always had one person on the boat to look after it, and the bears. Well, here am I in Boat Harbour, and look what's here. The bears are finally out. They're heading ashore tomorrow. I'm not sure what they're going to get up to, but there's a bit of anticipation on board. All sorts of guys. I've even got Peter Bear. He's my koala bear. He's been everywhere with me. I don't know what he's going to get up to, but got to make sure he doesn't get lost in the crowd. We've got a couple of hundred of these guys on board. Never mind. I better get back to cooking out some food or something. They've got to have some good old Players biscuits there. They've been a bit hungry, stacked up forward. I was just in the middle of cooking them bacon and eggs, and I heard another yacht on the radio coming into Boat Harbour. It was Iniquity. She'd been involved with the whale research project and heard we were there, so thought she'd come and visit. I thought here was a chance to form the Royal Douglas Mawson Yacht Club. I mean, we already had a clubhouse. And we thought we should get the dinghy ready in case they needed a hand with their lines. As Iniquity came round the corner to enter the harbour, things were looking pretty good. Our guys were in the dinghy ready to help, but then the motor stopped. Hands frantically tried to restart it. They were drifting out of the harbour pretty fast. John was paddling as quick as he could to get to a rock, and the water was cold, the wind was blowing. I started to get a bit concerned as I watched them. Then another drama. Iniquity came up, dropped her anchor, and a bullet came through and just took her sideways, straight out the harbour again. I held my breath. She was drifting towards the rocks. She had a motor going flat out to try and get some steerage. Nothing was happening. Then finally, the anchor started to hold. I could see the bow coming around, just ever so slowly. The gusts were coming through at 50 to 60 knots, and it's not really a big harbour. When Iniquity was secure, then I was able to concentrate again and just check to see what John and Hans were up to on the rock. If they hadn't have made that rock, I'm really not sure what would have happened, because there was just a lot of cold, blustery Southern Ocean out there. We then had to think fast about how we were going to get them off that rock. I figured they would have been wet and cold, even though they were in survival suits. And we thought the best thing to do would be to get a line to them from the end of the point at the entrance to the harbour. And once they got that line, they could pull themselves and we could help pull them back to shore. But it was easier said than done. The first problem we had to get to the end of the headland was to swim across a bit of a moat, you might say. And the water temperature was around -1 degree C, and with 50 to 60 knots of wind, the air temperature probably around -30. The rocks were cold and slippery, covered in ice. It wasn't much fun, but there was a lot at stake, and a situation like this can really develop very quickly into a disaster, so everyone was being very cautious. Tim Edkins, the skipper of Iniquity, was giving us a hand floating the line across to me, which I'd then float out to the guys on the rock. I was in my survival suit, and that was sort of keeping me warm, but my hands and feet were really starting to get cold already. After a couple of tries, we managed to float the line out. It doesn't look very far there, but it was about 150 metres. I got the line to within maybe 50, 60 feet of the rock, and John had to swim in his survival suit out to get it and bring it back to Hans. Then they secured it to the dinghy, and together we more or less pulled them back, and they pulled themselves back to the headland. See the grin on their face getting bigger and bigger as they got closer and closer. You got no idea how relieved I was when they finally came back. It's all this responsibility thing. I mean, I was the skipper, I was the head of the organisation and the expedition, so really I was responsible for them, and for a while, I wouldn't say I was really worried, but boy, I was just so relieved when we got them back on shore.
Calmest day we've had too, isn't it? Good day to go ashore. either you having to stand by?
I'll come back in and tell you if I've got to go ashore. After a couple of days, Johnny's getting itchy feet and he really wanted to get ashore. Blowing 50, 60 knots, gusting even higher, and really wanted to get Hans to give him a hand, but Hans really wanted to stay there. We had our Arctic gear on shore. There were tents, sleeping bags, special stoves, food, the works, so everyone was pretty well prepared, and we'd planned to go up and check out crevasses and go for a walk onto the plateau. But the way things were shaping up, this was going to be an adventure in Boat Harbour. We were beginning to understand why Mawson called his book Home of the Blizzard. It's the windiest place on Earth, with gusts recorded up to 300 kilometres an hour. You could always tell the power of the wind by the angle of heel when you're trying to walk around. This was about a 50-knot walk. A lot quicker going down. If the body wants to go a bit faster than the feet, we've got a problem. Do I really want to go up this hill? It's a lot easier going down. Okay. This is a great technique. Very versatile. Uphill or downhill. Meanwhile, it wasn't so much fun out on the boat. Everything's starting to ice up and the catabatics are really starting to pick up a bit. At this stage, we had a total of 7 lines ashore, plus 2 anchors down, and we needed every one of them. Some of the bullets were really starting to pick up. The water was just smoking and the boat would be shaking as if it was on train tracks. It was really quite interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting here. I keep hearing this crumbling. I think it's the ice falling off the rigging, falling on deck. We got 64, 65 knots gusting through here at the moment. How's everything looking your way? Yeah, not bad. We've got about 4 inches built up on our exhaust pipe at the moment. I really hope it doesn't go up inside the pipe if we want to start in a hurry. But yeah, everything's icing up.
This is a bit of a classic. I'm sitting here with my crew stranded ashore. It's gusting up to 70 knots at times. It's an absolute snow blizzard. The barometer is dropping rapidly. It's just going straight down. And the bad news for me is I'm here by myself. If something goes wrong, it's very hard for one person to do anything. So I've just got to sit here and sit it out. But it's kind of interesting place, this. Yeah, really interesting. It's about 60 now, but it's gusting 70, in fact it was 63, 63, 65, 67, 66, and there's a heap of snow on deck. I'm going to have to go up here, snow and ice, I'm going to have to go up and smash it off after because it creates more windage, which isn't good, even though I've got all these lines ashore. There's absolutely nothing you can do in a situation like this. The rocks are about 40, 50 feet behind. If any of these lines went, it could start a chain reaction and be there within minutes, or within seconds probably. I don't know whether I feared for my actual life, but losing the boat and everything I owned and being stuck in Antarctica with no means of getting home, it would have been a desperate situation. Gusts were incredible, 70 to 80 knots. Some of the bigger ones up around 100 knots, that's nearly 160 kilometres an hour. Certainly at one stage, the mast was blown right over on its side and the windows nearly went underwater. This was a surreal situation. I mean, here we were 50, 60 feet from shore and the boat shaking and vibrating and carrying on. I mean, there's nothing you could do. You couldn't eat, you couldn't sleep, you just had to sit there and just cope with it all. You really didn't know what was going to happen next. It was just as if we were fighting for survival in a Southern Ocean gale. And yet we were tied up ashore at anchor. Now I was really starting to appreciate how Mawson must have felt. I mean, he was there for 2 years, and this was summer, the quiet time of the year.
We developed a technique of walking about, but any routine work beyond shelter became a struggle against tempest and frostbite. The worst day was in May, when the wind reached 90.1 miles continuously for an hour.
Mawson actually recorded one gust up to 200 knots. In spite of these incredible katabatic winds, the expedition had to carry on.
The leader, Dr. Mawson, Xavier Mertz, and Lieutenant Ninnis took the 2 dog teams. Their mission was to explore the coast as far east as possible. Most of the way followed the coastal downfalls, where the great glaciers descend steeply to the sea, a nightmare region of bad crevasses.
The blizzard kept on for a couple of days, so Wade had plenty of time to capture penguins doing their thing. Life's pretty tough down here, and in conditions like this, these chicks would really be feeling the cold. They're huddling together to try and keep warm, even with their down jackets on. You had to be really careful that you didn't tread on them. They're kind of cute too, sort of like mobile snowballs, and they reminded me of little snowmen walking around. spent 13 days at the home of the blizzard, and for 10 of those days it blew over 50 knots, and for 7 of those it was blowing 70 knots plus. I spent a total of 24 hours ashore, that was all. I remember it was so exciting to get here, but guess what? I was just as excited to leave. We finally got out of Boat Harbour this morning. We had a small window. The wind yesterday was rocketing through at 80 knots, and this morning for a couple of hours dropped back to 20 knots. So we got everyone into action and quickly got all our lines on board and got out. And so now we're underway. We're about 60 miles from Boat Harbour, and it's a good feeling to be here. We just spoke to a Russian icebreaker, the Captain Klebnikov, who has just arrived at Cape Denison. They had hoped to go ashore, but guess what? It's blowing 50 knots. So poor people, they look as if they won't be able to get ashore. And it's really, it's unbelievable. Out here, 5 knots, 6 knots, and 60 miles back there. Typical Cape Denison, it's blowing 50 knots again. This berg's just like a huge battleship or something. Incredible. We didn't get to do a lot of things. I mean, we didn't get up onto the plateau, and we didn't get down into a crevasse, and we didn't even paddle a kayak. We had a hell of an adventure at anchor. And oh yeah, the teddy bears. We had an eventful trip home, a few gales, ripped a few sails, diesel leak inside the boat, seized the motor, broke the steering, and then, well, we were becalmed off the heads and had to get a tow. So it was kind of nice to see Sydney again. And as for the bears, well, today's the day the teddy bears finish their picnic. And boy, were they looking forward to a dry bed. Yeehaw! I'd like to thank my crew too. They're an excellent bunch of guys. We've had a fantastic trip, a few dramas, a few hectic moments, but overall we really experienced Antarctica to the full. The teddy bears had a tremendous time. Had some interesting stories with penguins. Healthy? He's healthy. Okay. This guy, he took off from school. He's been away for 6 weeks from school. Healthy too. There you go. They're all in peak condition.
Hey Mark, I found that gill. You had to take it to bed.
How does he look?
Mark,
Well, he's not covered in mould like I thought.
And yep, you guessed it. Something tells me this is not going to be the last teddy bear's picnic. Well, after that chilly picnic to the home of the blizzard, I really think I need to thaw out a bit. So, next week, we'll probably be in the tropics, or maybe in the desert, but certainly somewhere where I'll get the chance to thaw out. So, why don't you join us for another great adventure through the explorer's eye?